Good morning. Today's topic of my lecture is actinomycetes and nocardia. The morphologically, we see the actinomycetes are the gram-positive bacilli, and they have filamentous growth like fungi. That's why the name actinomycetes. They grow on the substrate and inside also, and they form thallus, that is tissue-like mass when grown in culture, and they also form mycelium like fungi. The mycelium is a tangled mass of hyphae found in nature. So as I told you, the actinomycetes are branching gram-positive bacilli. They are facultative anaerobes, but often fail to grow aerobically on primary culture. So they grow best anaerobically or in microaerophilic conditions with the addition of 5 to 10% carbon dioxide. So morphologically they resemble filamentous structures. First the spore is formed which converts into germ tube, and then hyphae, and a tangled mass of hyphae is known as mycelium. Ecologically, they are predominantly soil bacteria, and they are good at degrading recalcitrant substances like chitin and cellulose. They are active at higher pH, so it is contrast to fungi which are active at lower pH, that is acidic pH. And in the soil they give earthy smell to it. So in human beings, they are mostly found as commensals in the mouth, and they have a narrow temperature range of growth around 35 to 37 degrees centigrade. And when they become pathogenic, they cause the disease actinomycosis. Most common species which cause the disease are the Actinomyces israeli. Less common species found are Actinomycetes gerenseri, Nesolundi, Odontolithecus, Viscosus, Mayeri, Arachnia propionica, and members of the genus Bifidobacterium. Actinomycetes, if we classify them, then they belong to the order Actinomycetales. The characteristic feature is that they show fungus-like characteristics such as branching in tissues or in culture. So they look like mycelium. That's why the name given Actinomycetes. The filaments frequently segment during growth to produce pleomorphic, diphtheroidal or club-shaped cells. Cell wall and internal structure are typical of bacteria rather than fungi. So they come between the bacteria and the fungi. So some of the characters like formation of mycelium resemble the fungi, while the cell wall and the internal structure resemble the bacteria. And most of the actinomycetes are aerobic, but others are anaerobic. All are slow-growing bacteria. Clinically, they usually cause cervical lesions, formation of lumpy jaw. So this cervicofacial infection accounts for more than half of the reported cases, and the jaw is the most common site involved. So the disease is endogenous, that is the person's own bacterial flora. Normal flora is the source of infection. Dental caries is a predisposing factor, and infection may follow tooth extractions or other dental procedures. Men affected more than the females, and in some regions the disease is more common in rural agricultural workers than in town dwellers because of lower standards of dental care in the agricultural workers. Then another common infection is thoracic actinomycosis. It starts in the lungs, probably as a result of aspiration of actinomyces from the mouth. Then sinuses appear on the chest wall, and the ribs and spine may also get eroded. Primary endobronchial actinomycosis is an uncommon complication of an inhaled foreign body. So if a foreign body is inhaled and the actinomycosis gets entry into the lung, it can lead to primary endobronchial actinomycosis. Then another site of infection is abdominal actinomycetes. Abdominal cases commence in the appendix or less frequent in colonic diverticulae. The another one is pelvic actinomycosis, which occurs occasionally in women fitted with plastic intrauterine contraceptive devices. Actinomyces have been isolated from cases of chronic granulomatous disease and should be vigorously sought in this rare condition. So in immune deficiency disease known as chronic granulomatous disease, the actinomycosis are commonly found to be causing infections. The clinical significance of actinomycetes. As I told you, they are the normal flora. They are part of the normal flora in the cavities of human beings and other animals. All species of actinomycetes cause actinomycosis or lumpy jaw, which is a cervicofacial infection that used to occur following tooth extractions or dental surgery, which provided traumatized tissue for the growth of the microorganism, and it may involve or invade the bone. But this is nowadays rare because of prophylactic antibiotic therapy given during dental procedures. Again, they cause thoracic or abdominal infections. They can also cause meningitis, endocarditis, or genital infections. All kinds of actinomycetic infections are characterized by draining sinuses, usually containing characteristic granules, which are colonies of bacteria that look like the dense rosettes of club-shaped filaments in radial arrangement. So, all the infections of actinomyces have a special characters, that is, they have draining sinuses, and which contain granules. The treatment of choice is penicillin. Now, the lab diagnosis. The diagnosis starts with the collection of samples. So, specimen should be collected accordingly the site involved. So, it can be directly from the lesions by open biopsy, needle aspiration, or in case of pulmonary lesions, through fiber optic bronchoscopy. Then, the examination of sputum is of no value because it frequently contains oral, normal flora of actinomycetes. So, material should be collected directly from the lesions by open biopsy, needle aspiration, or fiber optic bronchoscopy. Now, after the collection of material from suspected cases, it is transported to the lab. In the laboratory, shaken with sterile water in a test tube. The sulfur granules which are present in the lesions are settled to the bottom and may be removed with the Pasteur pipette. These granules are crushed between two glass slides and stained by the Gram staining and Ziehl-Neelsen, that is modified Zn staining, using 1% sulfuric acid for decolorization instead of 25%, which is used in normal acid-fast staining. So here 1% sulfuric acid is used for Zn staining, and Gram staining is also done, which will reveal on smear examination of this Gram stain smear, we will see the Gram-positive mycelia and the zone of radiating acid-fast clubs in the acid-fast staining or modified Zn staining. So identification is by examining the sulfur granules and mycelia and the tissue sections also, identified by use of fluorescent conjugated specific antisera. Then we can also do in situ PCR to detect Actinomyces israeli in the tissue biopsies. So these are the colonies of Actinomycetes. Unlike after culture in suitable media like blood agar or brain-heart infusion agar, glucose broth, and enriched thioglycolate broth. So all these media, the blood agar, brain-heart infusion agar, and glucose broth or enriched thioglycolate broth are inoculated with the washed and crushed granules, and colonies will be formed after incubation done aerobically or anaerobically, both, for up to 14 days. So after inoculation of these culture media, they are incubated for 14 days in both the conditions, aerobically and anaerobically. So after several days, they are slow growing bacteria, so they take many days to grow. So after several days on agar medium, Actinomyces israeli forms so-called spider-shaped colonies. Spider colonies. So they look like a spider web. So in this figure you can see spider web-like colonies. So after a few days of incubation, we can see the spider colonies that resemble molar teeth also. So it resembles a shape of molar teeth or spider colonies. The identity may be confirmed by biochemical tests, by staining with specific fluorescent antisera, or by gas chromatography of metabolic products of carbohydrate fermentation of Actinomyces. Now the antibiotics used for treatment of Actinomycetes. Actinomycetes are sensitive to many drugs, but the penetration of the drugs into the densely fibrotic diseased tissue is poor. Okay, so in vitro they are found to be sensitive to many drugs, but in vivo when the drug is given, it should have the penetration to the fibrotic disease tissue. So large doses are required for long periods, and the recurrence of disease is not uncommon. Surgical debridement helps by reducing scarring and deformity, and it hastens healing and lowers the incidence of recurrences. So the drugs should be given for longer period in large doses, and surgical debridement is also advisable. So most commonly used treatment is the prolonged penicillin-based regimens. Earlier it was used, by now increasingly being replaced by shorter regimens based on amoxicillin with clavulanic acid. The clavulanic acid here is required because lesions are often concomitantly infected with beta-lactamase producing bacteria or amoxiclav or cephalosporins, especially ceftriaxone. So earlier penicillin-based regimes were given, but nowadays usually we give amoxicillin clavulanic acid combination or cephalosporins, especially ceftriaxone. Alternative antibiotics which can be used are tetracyclines, macrolides, fluoroquinolones, and imipenem. But in vitro sensitivity testing is unreliable. As I told you, the in vitro they can be shown to be susceptible, but in the body sometimes they are not effective because of the necrotic tissue, poor penetrability. Okay? Additional drugs which can be used are aminoglycosides and metronidazole. May be required when concomitant organisms. So to cover all other organisms which are usually found to be associated in these infections, metronidazole and aminoglycosides can be added to the regimen. The most common infection other is the Madura mycosis caused by these organisms. This picture shows a case of Madura mycosis involving a foot of the patient. So definition, if we give the Madura foot, or also known as mycetoma, because it resembles a tumor-like lesion is there. It is a chronic granulomatous disease characterized by localized infection of subcutaneous tissues and sometimes bone, characterized by discharging sinuses filled with organisms like actinomycetes or fungi. So the Madura foot or mycetoma can be caused by either fungi or bacteria like actinomycetes. Historically, the first person who described this disease was Gill, and he described the disease from Madura district of India in 1842. Hence, the name given is Madura foot. Epidemiologically, it is commonly found in the tropics and subtropics, and more common in men than in women. Male-female ratio is 3:1, and particularly found in those aged between 20 to 50, because this is the most common age the people work in fields. Pathophysiologically, it is typically present in agricultural workers. Hands, shoulders, and back are mostly involved due to carrying of contaminated vegetation and other burdens on their shoulders and back. Usually seen in individuals who walk barefoot in dry, dusty conditions. People who work in rural areas where they are exposed to acacia trees or cactus thorns containing the etiological agent. So when there is a thorn pick, this thorn carries the actinomyces with it into the deep inside the tissues, and then they can start the infection. So spread occurs through the skin, facial planes, and can involve the bone even. So it can go deep into the bone also. 2/3 of the cases arise on the foot, but can also involve hands, back, or shoulders. Following initial injury, the disease follows a slow chronic course over many years with painless swellings and intermittent discharge of pus. There may be a deep itching sensation to the patient. Pain may occur due to secondary bacterial infection or bone invasion. Pain may occur due to secondary bacterial infection or bone invasion. After some years, the massive swelling of the area occurs with induration, skin rupture, and sinus tract formation. As the infection spreads, old sinuses close and new ones open. So this is the picture showing sinus discharge. So the Madura foot or mycetoma can be caused by fungi as well as bacteria. When it is caused by fungus, it is known as eumycetoma. When the etiological agent is bacteria, it is known as actinomycetoma. So eumycetoma, that is fungi, cause the 40% of cases, and actinomycetes cause the 60% of cases of Madura foot. This actinomycetoma may be due to many species like Actinomadurae madurai, Actinomadurae pelletieri, Streptomyces somaliensis, and Nocardia species. Eumycetoma is often due to Madura mycetomy, that is, these are fungi, Madurai mycetoma, Pseudoelecheria boydii, and Cladophylophora. So these are the pictures showing the mycetoma foot and different granules of different etiological agents like Madula mycomatis, Madula grigia, Pseudoescheria boydii, and Acrimonium. So different colors are there for different granules caused by different fungi and bacteria, and we can differentiate them by their color, their morphology, their size, and in the microscope they also have different morphologies. Now the lab diagnosis of Madura foot. Clinically, these are slow spreading skin infections. Local swelling is seen and then develop the small hard painless nodules. They go into ulceration. Through these ulcers, pus discharge can be seen, and followed by scarred skin and discoloration. The patient feels itchiness and pain and burning sensation. So this picture shows a long-standing mycetoma resulting in deformity of the foot. And these are the sinuses from nocardia infection resulting in water can appearance. Small discharging sinuses, large number of small discharging sinuses can be seen. So it is also known as water can appearance. In laboratory, we can collect the sample from the discharging sinus, and we can see the granules, collect the granules. Then the granule is crushed between two slides, and directly we can do the microscopy by gram staining and modified Zn staining. Then a blood examination can be done. We can find out the leukocytosis and neutrophilia. Then after microscopy, we can culture the exudate. After culturing, we can find the colonies, that is spider-shaped colonies of these bacteria or molar tooth type colonies. Then skin biopsy can be done directly from the lesion. Then serology, DNA sequencing has been used for identification of difficult cases. So in situ, staining can be done, PCR can be done. In the microscopy, we find by examining the serosanguinous fluid. So serosanguinous fluid collected from the lesion contains granules, and these granules are examined using 10% QH and Parker ink or Calco for white mounts for fungi. The tissue sections can be used stained by HND staining, PAS staining, and Grocott's methenamine silver staining. Actinomycotic granules are very fine filaments containing tissue. The fungal grains contain short hyphae that are often swollen. So that we can differentiate between the actinomycotic and fungal etiologies. This is the tissue picture of the mycetoma. And we can do the skin biopsy, H&E staining, and many other staining like Calco for white. Then culture is done on Sabro's dextrose agar or mycobiotic agar to isolate the fungi, and on blood agar to isolate the bacteria. So agar plates are cultured at 25 to 30 degrees centigrade and 37 degrees centigrade at both the temperatures for up to 6 weeks. Then fungi grow more quickly than actinomycetes. So fungus here grows in lesser time than the actinomycetes. This shows the nocardia on culture plate. Serologically, we can do immunodiffusion tests, eumycotic mycetoma infections, counter immunoelectrophoresis, enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay, that is ELISA and Western blot. Then we can do the X-ray imaging to assess the evidence of bone involvement. CT scan may be more sensitive in the early stage, so we can do X-ray, CT scanning, MRI scans, which is even better for assessment of the degree of bone and soft tissue involvement, and may be used in evaluating the differential diagnosis of the swelling. So, rheology helps in the diagnosis. Then bone radiography. Once mycetoma has invaded the bone, the following changes may be observed. like cortical thinning due to compression from the outside of the mycetoma. Multiple lytic lesions or cavities may be seen, which may be large and few in number with well-defined margins, or small and numerous with ill-defined margins. So in actinomycetoma, these cavities are small and numerous with ill-defined margins, where in mycetoma they are large and few in number with well-defined margins. Then later stages osteoporosis occurs. So in the later stages of this, the healthy bone gets into osteoporosis. Then ultrasound can also help. Single or multiple thick-walled cavities with hyperreflective echoes and no acoustic enhancement is seen in ultrasonography. In mycetoma, the hyperreflective echoes are sharp, corresponding to the grains in the lesion, while in actinomycetoma, the hyperreflective echoes are fine and closely aggregated, commonly settled at the bottom of the cavity. So the ultrasound, we can differentiate between both the etiologies of mycetoma, that is fungal origin or bacterial origin. Now, the treatment of the Madhura foot, due to the slow, relatively painless progression of the disease, mycetoma is often at an advanced stage when diagnosed, because the patient doesn't seek the treatment because it is a relatively painless situation. So, it is usually diagnosed at an advanced stage. We can give antifungal drugs, antibiotics, treatment of any secondary infection if it is there, and amputation in severe cases. So, we have to sometimes amputate the foot. Medical management is done, but actinomyces usually respond better to medical treatment than mycetomas. Therapy is suggested for 1 to 2 years or even longer for complete eradication. The current treatment of actinomycetoma is trimethoprim sulfamethoxazole 7.5 to 440 mg per kg daily in 3 oral doses for several months or years. Okay, so the treatment is very long. Here we give trimethoprim sulfamethoxazole 7.5 to 40 mg per kg of body weight daily in 3 divided doses orally for several months or years. For mycetoma, that is fungal origin mycetoma, we will give ketoconazole 400 mg daily, itraconazole 300 mg daily, or amphotericin B 50 mg daily, or terbinafine. External beam radiotherapy in doses ranging from has been considered successful treatment in few selective cases. So radiotherapy is found to be useful. This shows the external beam radiotherapy. Surgical management. First is the excision of the affected tissue. So affected tissue is surgically removed. Then localized mycetoma lesions that can be excised completely without residual. So sometimes all of the lesions can be excised completely. Disease process is more extensive than suggested by superficial. So if you find superficial lesions, but deep involvement is always there. So the apparently healthy tissue removal will avoid recurrence. So not only the diseased tissue, but some of the healthy tissue should also be removed to prevent the recurrence. Surgical reduction of large lesions can improve the patient's response to medical treatment also. So antibiotics will be more effective if we remove the reduction of large lesions. We do the reduction of large lesions. On the scalp lesion, if the scalp lesion is there, then they are rapidly fatal. So it should be attended without delay. Extensive surgery may have to be followed by skin grafting or plastic surgery to cover large open area or improve functions. Extensive bone involvement often warrants surgical amputation. So if large amount of extensive involvement of bone is there, then surgical amputation is the treatment. Complications of mycetoma foot are secondary bacterial infections. Immunocompromised patients may develop invasive infection. It can cause increased pain and disability as well as osteomyelitis, septicemia, which may be fatal if untreated. Lymphatic obstruction and fibrosis may cause lymphedema. In advanced cases, deformities or ankylosis may occur. Chronic neglected infection may necessitate amputation. So early detection and treatment is very important to avoid amputation. Complications may also result from toxicity due to prolonged antimicrobial or antifungal therapy because it requires a long treatment. So sometimes toxicity due to antibiotics can also appear in the patient. Actinomycetoma may be cured with the appropriate antibiotic therapy. So actinomycetoma responds better to the treatment than eumycetoma, that is fungal infection, is had a high rate of recurrence and can require amputation. So another member of this family is the Nocardia species. So Nocardia primarily presents as a pulmonary disease or brain abscess in the US and Latin America. It is more frequently seen as the cause of subcutaneous infections with or without draining abscesses. It can even present as a lesion of the chest wall that drains into the surface of the body, similar to actinomycosis. Brain abscesses are frequently secondary lesions. So here also the abscess formation with discharging sinuses are seen at different sites of the body. Morphologically, they are again branched strictly aerobic. The actinomyces are anaerobic while Nocardia are aerobic bacteria. So they are branched strictly aerobic gram-positive bacteria that are closely related to the rapidly growing mycobacteria. Like the latter, like the mycobacteria, but unlike actinomycetes, they are environmental saprophytes with a broad temperature range of growth. Most isolates are acid-fast when decolorized with 1% sulfuric acid. So modified Zadan staining, you can see these Nocardia species. Epidemiologically, many species of Nocardia are found in the environment, notably in soil, and a range of species cause human opportunistic disease. Notably, Nocardia asteroides, so named because of its star-shaped colonies, Neisseria abscessus, Farcinica, Brasiliensis, Brevicetana, Otitis caviarum, Nova, and Transvalensis. So a wider range of species are encountered in profoundly immunocompromised patients. So most commonly this Nocardia causes infections in immunocompromised patients, and large number of wider range of species is also seen in immunocompromised patients. The risk factors for the Nocardia, principally the species known as Nocardia asteroides. They are the uncommon cause of opportunistic pulmonary infections, usually occurs in immunocompromised individuals, including those receiving post-transplant immunosuppressive therapy or chemotherapy for cancer and those with HIV or AIDS. Okay, so these are usually all immunocompromised patients receiving immunosuppressive drugs either due to transplant or chemotherapy for cancer or which have HIV or AIDS. Another risk factor is the corticosteroid therapy. So it's again a strong risk factor. As a result, the frequency and diversity of clinical manifestations of Nocardia disease has increased over the past few decades, because in past few decades, use of corticosteroids and immunosuppressive drugs has increased. So the frequency and diversity of clinical manifestations of Nocardia infections are also increased. Pre-existing lung disease, notably alveolar periproteinuria, also predisposes Nocardial disease. Infection here is exogenous, resulting from inhalation of the bacilli. So in a preformed cavities, a pre-existing lung disease due to external infection, due to inhalation of the bacilli, the infection starts. The clinical and radiological features are variable and non-specific, and diagnosis is again difficult. In most cases, there are multiple confluent abscesses with little or no surrounding fibrous reaction, and local spread may result in pleural effusions, empyema, and invasion of bones. So pulmonary lesions starts with multiple confluent abscesses, and there is no surrounding fibrous reaction, and they spread locally, resulting in pleural effusion, empyema, and even invasion of the bones. In some cases, the disease is chronic, while in others, it may spread very rapidly through the lungs. So the disease course is very much variable, clinical manifestations are diverse. Other complications of Nocardia lesions, sometimes the secondary abscesses form in the brain and less frequently in other organs in about 1/3 of patients with pulmonary nocardiosis. So in pulmonary nocardiosis, the other complications may arise like secondary abscesses in the brain and many other organs. Acute dissemination with involvement of many organs occurs in profoundly immunosuppressed persons, particularly in HIV or AIDS patients. Recurrence is common in immunosuppressed patients and mortality is high. So it's a disease of most commonly of immunosuppressed patients where the profoundly we can see the acute dissemination with involvement of many drugs and mortality is also seen very highly. Other complications involving primary post-traumatic, post-operative, or post-inoculation cutaneous infections, primary cutaneous nocardiosis. The most frequent cause here is Nocardia brasiliensis, and some cases may be caused by Nocardia asteroidis other species. In USA and southern hemisphere, but not in Europe, cutaneous infections may result in fumigating tumor-like masses known as mycetomas. Diagnosis of nocardia infections. A presumptive diagnosis of pulmonary nocardiosis may be made by a microscopical examination of sputum. So the pulmonary nocardiosis, we will collect the sample, that is sputum. In many cases, the sputum contains numerous lymphocytes and macrophages, some of which may contain pleomorphic gram-positive and weakly acid-fast bacilli, and occasionally extracellular branching filaments. So we collect the sample of sputum, we do the gram staining and modified Zn staining, and we can see the pleomorphic gram-positive bacilli, and in Zn stained smear we can see the weakly stained acid-fast bacilli. Weakly acid-fast bacilli, that is, they are resistant to 1% sulfuric acid, not 25%. And we can occasionally see extracellular branching filaments also. Nocardia are not easily seen in tissue biopsies stained by grams or modified Zn, but may be seen in preparation stained by gram, weight, or Gomery methamine silver methods. So tissue staining can be done by gram weight Vigert staining or Gomery's methamine silver methods. Now the culture of nocardia. Nocardia grow on blood agar, although growth is better on enriched media, including Algae medium, that is Launston-Jensen medium, Reinhardt infusion agar, and Sebrod dextrose agar containing chloramphenicol as a selective agent. So nocardia can be grown on blood agar, but usually they better grow on Algae medium, Reinhardt infusion agar, and Sebrod dextrose agar, which contains chloramphenicol as a selective agent. So on culture media, the growth is visible after incubation for 2 days and 1 month. So it's variable. It can grow in 2 days to 1 month time. Selective growth is favored by incubation at 45 degrees centigrade. Colonies are cream, orange, or pink colored. Cream, orange, pink colored colonies, their surface develop a dry, chalky appearance, and they adhere firmly to the medium. So these are slow growing bacteria, but may range from 2 days to 1 month. And if we grow on 45 degrees centigrade, then selective growth will be favored. Colonies are cream, orange, or pink colored, and they have a dry, chalky appearance, and they adhere or stick firmly to the medium. Treatment of nocardia. Most commonly used regimen is sulfamethoxazole with trimethoprim for 3 to 6 months. Widely used regimen for nocardia is sulfamethoxazole, like cotrimoxazole, for 3 to 6 months. But because of this prolonged course causes adverse drug reactions in the patient. In some addition, some strains like N. farcinica are resistant to sulfonamides. So alternative regimen, particularly in severe disease, is high dose imipenem with amikacin for 4 to 6 weeks. So in severe disease, if the patient is not improving, we can give high doses imipenem with amikacin for 4 to 6 weeks. Then minocycline third generation cephalosporins, amoxicillin clavulanate combinations, linezolid and oxazolidone are also effective. So this is about the nocardia and actinomycetes. So if we revise, the actinomycetes and nocardia are gram-positive branching filament-like bacilli, which resemble in some features with the fungi and some features with the bacteria. Okay, they are slow-growing bacteria. They will grow on blood agar and Reinhardt infusion agar and Sebrod dextrose medium, and they will appear as gram-positive. And if we stain them with modified Zn staining using 1% sulfuric acid, they will appear as acid-fast bacteria. Okay. they will produce a sunray appearance. Actinomycetes are mostly anaerobic, while nocardia are aerobic bacteria, and they cause granulomatous, discharging sinuses, and prolonged therapy with penicillin and sulfamethoxazole or amoxiclav is needed for the treatment. Recurrence is again common, and mostly they cause the disease in immunocompromised patients. And radiologically and surgical intervention is helpful for their treatment. And nowadays they are increasingly being reported because of the commonly used drugs like corticosteroids for immunosuppressive drugs in cancer patients, in HIV patients where immunocompromised status is there. Thank you.